So I've had some friends recently getting new cars, and I've heard them talk about this thing, this idea of managing their payments. So they can say, let's say I have $300 a month that I'm all right with spending on a car. So as long as I, keep it under that, then I'm fine. And every 2 to 5 years, they go ahead and they get a nicer, newer car or a different car. Maybe they get a Jeep and they get sick of it and they want something smaller, and then they have something smaller for a while, then they want something bigger. And it's just this continuing cycle of paying $300, $400, $500 a month indefinitely for a car. Now, I really don't think this is a great idea, especially if your goal is to reach early retirement, because you're having this fixed monthly expense that doesn't need to be that way. I kind of want to explain my point of view as to, instead of always having this monthly payment, even though I could afford to have this monthly payment, structuring it a different way and how that can make you millions of dollars over your lifetime as opposed to always having this monthly payment. So let's go inside. All right, so let me just explain what we're gonna do for the math of this. So what we're going to do is look at if I bought a car and how I would structure this, or just one way of structuring it, and how a friend would do this. Let's call him Sam, because his name is Sam. Maybe I should have come up with a code name. His name's not Sam. We're just calling him
Sam. Yeah, I think we're gonna die.
So what we're gonna look at here is a 45-year cycle. Usually I don't look at things in this long of term because we're looking for that early retirement in 10 years, in 15 years. We're not really looking for that 45 years like way down the road. But for this example, I just want you to see the long-term impacts of this and how this can work. And you can also see the micro, like the shorter, as well as the macro, the larger here. So my friend that we are calling Sam, he gets a new car every, let's say, 5 years because he gets sick of it. He wants a new one. He likes the smell of the new car. He just likes enjoying that new car, and he thinks he deserves it. He works really hard, 60-hour weeks. He is grinding, and he thinks he deserves that new car. And you know what? When he does get that new car, it gives him a really good high, and he really enjoys it, especially for that first week or two, and then it kind of wears off, and it's pretty similar to the other ones. So let's look what happens. He is pretty responsible, and he buys a cheaper car. Maybe it's like an $18,000 to $20,000. Let's just call it a Honda Civic, something in that price range. And let's say his payments end up at around $300 a month, which is actually pretty low. But it can be higher or lower depending on if you put a down payment or not. We're not going to calculate all that type of stuff in because there's just so many variables. But let's say it's around $300 a month. He's going to continue to pay that $300 every single month for the next 45 years. So at the end of that 45 years, he has spent $162,000 on his car strictly for the payments, not talking about the insurance, the gas, the repairs, and all that type of thing. And you know what? That's not horrible, actually. Like $160,000 is not horrible to be spending on a car over the entire span of your lifetime. But let's look at what he missed out on, what he could have had instead of having this new car, the opportunity cost that he missed. So for the first 5 years, he is in exactly the same boat because he's still paying $300 a month. But for the next 10 years, he is investing that money into the stock market, earning 8%. At the end of that 10 years, he's going to have $52,000 saved up. And his car is now 15 years old, which if you're getting a Honda Civic, you can easily have a Honda Civic that you drive for 15 years and it's not going to have any major problems, definitely not $52,000 worth of problems. And it's going to be, very reliable and just a fine car. And let's say he has no value left at the end whatsoever. So he's just going out and buying a brand new car again. So he goes through this cycle where he's paying for the car for the next 5 years, and then he's investing for the next 10 years. And at the end of that, he's going to have $216,000 saved up. So after this 30 years, just from his car payment, his monthly car payment, he has made $260,000 while getting these two new cars. So we run through this again until we get to year 45. And at year 45, he's going to have $742,000 saved up just because he got 3 brand new cars over his lifetime instead of continually cycling through. So yes, he could have afforded to go ahead and get this new car constantly. And he has to make a choice. Would he rather have a new car indefinitely and, you know, be paying that $160,000, which is not horrible? Or would he rather, when he reaches 65, have $740,000 that is just extra besides whatever else he invested elsewhere? Now, this is going to come into the people who are saying you're going to live now and, you know, like forget about being when you're 60, but I see a lot of 60-year-olds working like at Walmart and at these places where they shouldn't be. If they just changed things a little bit, ran one of those cycles where they weren't continually making a car payment, instead they were investing, that can make a huge difference. More like, how many people do you know that have $740,000 saved up? Like, probably almost nobody. But just doing this one little thing, and you're still going to get to drive a new car that you really like for a while, and then it's going to be a little bit older, but who really cares? You probably just need to go to work. You don't need all the bells and whistles. Like, if you do, if that's what adds value to you, that's totally fine. But for me, and for people who want to retire early, I think almost nobody is going to say go out and get a new car unless it's a Tesla, then, you know. But for me, I really don't see the value in it. I don't really, like, it's cool to have a new car, but I've driven, like, I've had a Mustang at one point, a couple Mustangs, and they're the same thing as everything else. They just cost a lot more to drive because they're gas guzzlers and whatever. So maybe another time we can talk about how to have free cars and drive them for free, but that'll be for another video. So just for the heck of it, I ran what the numbers would be on a $36,000 car, and that equals out to about $600 a month. And the average price for a car in America is around $35,000. So this is something that is really, like, a lot of people are doing this. Now, it might not be that high of a payment because you put some money down or something like that. But again, we're just going through this for the sake of understanding the long-term compound interest effects of the decisions that we're making today. So let's say this person did the same thing, the correct way of doing it, where they go ahead and they buy a new car every 15 years and they are investing that $600 after that first 5 years. So for that 10-year period, for 30 years total, they're investing $600 every single month. At the end of 45 years, they're going to have $2.1 million. $2.1 million because they invested that $600 instead of continually having a new car. And for $36,000, you can get a pretty decent car every 15 years. And that's not even like the best way to do this. The best way to do this would be to go ahead and get a car that is maybe 5 to 10 years old once it has already had a ton of appreciation on it. Either buy it cash or not, and then continually to invest. The whole point of this is it's not going to make a difference unless you are investing that money early or investing it often. It's for the long term. We can also talk about the difference between maybe you're going to have less repair costs on a newer car as opposed to one that is maybe 5 to 10 years old. But again, you're not going to have millions of dollars of repair costs. It might not be completely as reliable as a brand new car, but really, do you need like the absolute best of everything? Is it worth that $2 million to have a more reliable car that is bigger and probably takes more gas, things like that? So just think about those long-term effects of what you're doing. So what I do personally is I will go ahead and get a car that is maybe 10 years old or so. I'll buy it for, let's say, $6,000. And then I'll drive it for 3 years or so, maybe longer, depending on what type of car it is, what type of shape it's in, and then sell it for maybe $3,000 or $4,000. So it really cost me $2,000 or $3,000 over this few years to drive a car, and that's all I really need. And then if you want to, you can go a little more advanced where you're spending $10,000, you hang on to it for 5 years, sell it for $4,000 or $5,000, like things like that, where you can really drive cars for very cheaply if you're not making that payment all the time, and if you are able to pay cash and things like that. If you are buying on Craigslist, make sure you always bring it to a shop and have them check it out first. It also helps with negotiating if you're able to say like, hey man, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Can you give me $1,000 off? It works, ask for it, and you could probably get money off, especially if it's a private deal. I hate dealerships. They are a scam. That is what I got. I'm starting this new segment where I make a recommendation at the end of each video. What should I recommend? We're gonna go with music. I can't remember the guy's name. Check out the song Time in a Tree or Stronger Than Ever by Raul Ritchie. I'll have to look up how to say his name. Very good song, just kind of different. He's actually the actor who plays Grey Worm in Game of Thrones, apparently. Check that out. I think it's pretty cool. Let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed this, please tap that like button. It does make a big difference. And thank you for hanging out with me and, letting me talk at you.